Hello everyone, this is JPL, and today I'm joined with
Matthew.
and we are the Council of Podcast Name in Brackets, and today we'll be talking about our top 5 animated movies, and just so you're sure, these are not anime related, these are purely animated stuff, right?
Yeah, there's so many good anime movies that we've actually done our own separate podcast on that.
Yes, and so, yeah, there's a lot of good animated movies for me personally that I decided to just make things a bit more interesting, to spice things up a bit. They may not necessarily be my top favorites, but they're just the ones that I can think of at this very moment without just using just the exact same titles for each one. So yeah. And if you don't know how this stuff normally works, we usually start with our number 5, and then we talk about that, go to 4 and 3, 2, and whatever. And so yeah, you want to start here?
Yeah, so my number 5 is Coraline, which I read the book, and this was a few years ago, but it only took me like half an afternoon, and it's a really creepy book, kind of inspired by Alice in Wonderland. So I got around to watching the movie finally, and it's stop motion animation, so that already has a little bit of a creepy aspect to it. But the movie itself is very dark and disturbing, and I don't know, it just all works really well. It's not a very big movie, but um, it's yeah, it's really interesting, disturbing, creepy. Not quite what you would expect from a kids movie.
Okay. Well, uh, personally, I'm not a big fan of this movie. I saw it once, and from what I saw there, I just did not really like what was going on there. Because me, when I was watching it, I just felt like this is probably something I shouldn't be watching. Even though I was a teenager, I was still a teenager. A much older person was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a teenager. I can watch blood and gore." But when I was watching this, it's like this feels like way too inappropriate for me to watch, especially that circus sequence. I don't like that.
Yeah, it is very disturbing and surprisingly
Yes.
adult.
And even for someone like me, who was still an older kid there, that I just cannot. I couldn't even like finish the movie. I was near like the third act. I think I was in the third act, but I stopped watching because I just became less interested in it, and I just could not keep up with what was going on. And so yeah, I would not
Yeah.
recommend this movie.
And the nice thing about this movie, it starts out with a very creepy opening scene, which maybe not the greatest, but if that opening scene creeps you out too much, then you kind of know if you're going to be able to make it through the movie. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It isn't one that I watch over and over and over again, but I found it creepier than some even live action horror movies.
Okay. All right. So on to my number 5. I have a lovely classic, which is Toy Story 2. Originally, I was gonna do the first Toy Story, but then thinking about it, Toy Story 2 would be my favorite of the series. I grew up watching Toy Story. I just really loved Buzz Lightyear and Woody, and I just love the second one. You have the addition of like more characters, more fun characters, and it's still like a nice, fine story, very well done. Um, I could talk very briefly about the third one. Wasn't my favorites of the three, mainly because it had been years since the second one came out, and even though every time I get to the end of the movie, I still cry at that ending there. Every time I watch it because it's so sad. But overall, the third one not my favorite, but the second one definitely love it, and I would Always love watching it.
Yeah, I think I also grew up with the second one, and my parents actually didn't let me watch the first one, but I don't even feel the need anymore to watch that one because the second one is just so good, very emotional, really well animated. Like it doesn't quite hold up anymore, but it's still impressive for the time.
Yeah, and I do believe that second one was my first one before I even watched the first one. So yeah, you don't even need to watch the first one to watch the second one, which I feel is very good. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't. Um, yeah, my number four movie. This is one of more recent movies. And that is the Lego Movie. And when I walked into the theater for this, I didn't really know what to expect. And it just blew me away. It's really fast paced and it's constantly changing genres, and the jokes come a mile a minute to the point where you're constantly laughing. And for being, a 90-minute long commercial, it's surprisingly good and it has a lot of great, genuine moments.
Yeah, I will also say it is very good. I will say that I wasn't as big as a fan of it when it first came out. One, because when it first came out, I wasn't able to watch it because it was only available in Spanish in theaters, which was a very. It's one thing I don't like about animated movies in South America is that they're only available in Spanish, and I had to wait months later for just to watch it, maybe on the airplane, and I really enjoyed it. I will say it's a fun time watching it now. I will say some of the fun and humor I liked about it has kind of dried off a bit for me personally. But I would still say it's a really fun movie, and I do say it's the best of the current Lego movies that we have available. And very fun, very nice.
Yeah.
I do enjoy all the references there. Yeah.
And the animation itself is spectacular. Everything looks real, which, I mean, obviously it's very stylized, but everything looks like actual plastic bricks, and it's the kind of thing that the Lego Batman movie and the Lego Ninjago movie make slight improvements, but it's so good in the first place that it just looks spectacular.
And it makes you think like, oh, is this stop motion or is this CGI? And I
Yeah,
thought everything was stop motion, so really,
yeah.
really cool.
I think I saw it 3 times in the theater. And I personally prefer the Spanish version just because the voices fit the characters a bit better, I thought. But yeah, it's definitely worth watching in any language
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
understand the language.
of course, of course. All right, so moving on to number two, I think this is a classic for a lot of our younger people there, which is the Iron Giant, a very fun movie with this giant robot, really enjoyable. Um, and it's still a really weird concept that's just really enjoyable as well. So yeah, I cannot say a lot about it, but it's just something that it is. That's a really weird
Yeah,
thing to weird way to explain it, but it's honestly that's the best thing I could say about it. It is what it is, and it's really good.
I haven't seen it yet, but from what I've heard, it's a really well made and very emotional movie. Um, yeah, I've only ever heard good things about it, so I should probably get around to watching it eventually.
Maybe we can watch it together or something. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of emotional, relatable robots, my number three favorite animated movie is Wall-E. This movie is just incredible. the storytelling is very visual. The most used lines of the movie are literally the characters' names that they just repeat over and over again, and it's really endearing. I would say that this is the last great Pixar movie until Coco, and um, it's just really great. Wally is really easy to love, and yeah, it's surprisingly emotional. There's a lot of really great setup and payoff, and yeah, it's really deep for an animated movie.
Yeah, I'd say this is like really enjoyable. Probably one of my favorites of the Pixar movies as well, probably. And yeah, I remember when this thing was announced, it was just like, there's something alluring about this cute little robot thing that I found interesting, and I was already sold on the movie when it first came out, and I still remember going to the theater and watching it there. So yeah, very very nice.
Yeah. Also, it's worth saying the animation is incredible, especially once they get into space. Um, it's just really, really pretty to look at, and the designs of all of the robots. Yeah, there's a lot of. It's as expressive as like a Charlie Chaplin movie. Um, just sort of, and they, from what I've heard, they actually did watch old silent films while they were producing this movie to get used to characters who aren't talking.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Is that all?
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to my number three, this is actually a very relevant thing, and that is The Incredibles. My goodness, I really loved the first one. I remember as a kid, I would watch it almost every day when I got it on DVD. I remember, I very specifically remember watching it in theater, sitting with someone in a certain row or something. I have a lot of details there. And it's just so fun to watch, and I love the superhero genre, and I love watching how it makes fun of the superhero genre while it also being one. I've not yet seen the second one, but I hear it doesn't hold up as well. But yeah, for what this first one is, it's just very good. And I just always love watching it, and so yeah, it's good.
Yeah, this is one of the movies that I grew up with as well. It's a great Pixar movie. Just a lot of fun. Yeah, also a good family movie.
Yeah, so yeah, I would highly recommend it to you.
Yeah. Um, so I guess on to number two. My number two is a movie that not very many people have seen, and it's really a shame. It's from 2013, and it's called The Congress, and it stars Robin Wright as Robin Wright, and she gets an offer to have herself scanned digitally, and it's really interesting. It's kind of similar lines of bringing Peter Cushing back for Rogue One, digital scanning, and the movie itself is just incredible. It's pretty ahead of its time. I would say it's the better version of Ready Player One, and the animation for being a low budget film is really incredible. They sort of capture the Disney Looney Tunes style, and it's kind of weird and kind of trippy, but it's once you get into it, it has some really deep themes.
Okay, I've not seen it. I've never heard of it. So okay.
Yeah, it might take you a while to find it. It isn't a big movie that a lot of people have seen, but I really enjoyed it.
All right. So on to my number two. This is another. I think probably one of the most recent movies on this list here. Came out in 2000 and I want to say 16. Yeah, I believe that's correct. and that is Return of the Cape Crusaders. Now, this is an animated movie based on the 1960s Adam West Batman, and really, this movie is a lot better if you have seen or grew up with the 60s Batman, and you'd understand all the references and jokes, and it's really funny. And there's just a lot of nods to other famous Batman stories, like the 80s Batman movie and the Dark Knight Returns, another really good story. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I watched it with my mom. We both grew up watching the 60s Batman, and we both loved it, and we understood everything. And so, yeah, it was such a good time watching it, and it's really well done.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I have heard really great things about it.
Yeah. So, on to number one.
Yeah, my number one. This is another stop motion, same year as Coraline as well, and that is Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I'm a huge fan of any Wes Anderson movie, and this is one of his best. Very, it has a very unique style of humor, kind of dry and very quirky, but it's really a great movie. There's a lot of great emotions going on. Visually, even, it's just really unique. Definitely worth checking out. It's
Yeah. I watched it. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's a really weird story about a fox trying to steal things. It's Wes Anderson. You have to let some of his style go, because some of his style is just really weird, and you have to not think too much about it for it to go. But overall, it's
yeah,
it's an enjoyable movie, probably well done. I would recommend it, but it's not my favorite one. But I will say it's a good movie overall.
yeah, and this is interestingly one. This is, even though it is a family movie, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for families, just because it has some very mature themes, and the main character isn't always someone you want your kids to look up to, as he is a thief.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very very interesting. Anything else we have here?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. Fun movie. I would recommend it. Just to see what it's like. But yeah, fun and interesting. And onto my number one, like I mentioned with number two, is The Dark Knight Returns. It's probably my personal favorite Batman story out there. I really love the animated movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies out there. I believe I rated it in number two of my list. Very well done. I think it's personally much better than all the new rated R movies. I think it's even more deserving of a rated R than the other rated R movies for the animated movies. Just because it's just how dark everything is, and I believe there's a lot more blood than those other movies have. So yeah, I I would recommend it, but not to you children or younger people. Honestly, great story, well animated, and I just love it. I could watch it every day, personally.
Yeah, I've only seen this one once, and I didn't really get into it as much as I know that you did, but it's it's still really well done, and yeah, I think even animation wise, this is probably one of the best looking of the DC animated movies. It is a bit long, but they do
If
a
you
lot
have the
with it, and
deluxe version, because this
yeah,
movie did come out in two parts.
yeah, and I mean, it's an iconic comic book story, and I
Yeah,
think they did a really good job adapting it. And
Yeah. I will say though, since you brought something up where you said you weren't as big as a fan of it as I was, but I actually wasn't a big fan of this through my first time viewing it. It was actually through my second time that I actually really enjoyed it, because I thought the first time was like, okay, this is a good movie, but it's not too good. And I learning more things about the Batman universe and learning more about the animation and music industry, I can appreciate this movie a lot more, and I just really loved how everything looks and sounds, and yeah, I enjoy it more each viewing I have of it. So yeah.
okay, yeah, and it does have a really great Batman versus Superman fight. I think the fight itself isn't as cool as the live action one, but the context and the themes it brings up are definitely better
And
than the
definitely
live
the
action one, in my
lines they
opinion.
have in that fight
Yeah,
are better than the movie
yeah.
itself. Um, and I don't want to get into a discussion about the movie there. We could talk all day about it. So yeah, this is our top 5 animated movies. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Well, are there any honorable mentions we want to bring up?
You want to go? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I don't watch a large variety of animated movies just because, sometimes I feel that the people making the animated movies know that it's mainly kids watching them, and kids aren't always as tough on a movie. So I feel like oftentimes animated movies have lower quality in terms of storytelling and that kind of stuff. But I really enjoy early Pixar, and then their most recent ones, Coco and The Incredibles 2, are both pretty good. Zootopia and a lot of the Disney animated movies. Um, yeah, and again, I don't always enjoy watching animated movies, but there are some really good ones out there.
Yeah, there are a lot of animated movies that for me to list them off would take a long time. So at the top of my head, I can say, first things first, Rainbow Rocks. I would suggest more for My Little Pony fans, and a very good movie. I think the best of those series of movies. Then I would say a very underrated movie is Tintin. That movie that came out in 2011. I'm not sure if you saw it, Matthew.
Yeah, yeah, I saw it. That one's really good.
Yeah, very underrated. Very, very well done. Um, then there's Atlantis and Emperor's New Groove.
Oh yeah,
I
that
can
one's
list off.
good.
I can list off a lot of really good movies, but that would take a while. So yeah, those are our picks here. And is there anything else you want to say here, Matthew?
Oh, I was going to say another honorable mention on the more artistic side. I haven't seen it in a few years, so that's why I didn't put it on the list. But The Secret of Kells, it's I believe it's an Irish film, and yeah, just very artistic more than most of the other movies that we talked about. But yeah,
Okay. Is that all?
I believe so.
All right. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I guess we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.